Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Football Heritage TV. For some of you, you probably just saw me having a conversation with Henry about Bellingham and Real Madrid. So we're going to go from one of the giants of football to the second biggest club in North London, Arsenal. Dan Potts from Football's 12th Man podcast. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Listen, thanks for having me on, mate. I'm looking forward to doing this little regular thing, and it's always good to talk about Arsenal and Spurs anyway. But it's great this season when one of us is flying high and the other one is struggling, so to say the least. Even though we've had a
Hey,
bit of a downfall in the last few weeks, but there we go.
listen. You lot, you come out the woodwork when you get a nice 3-1 win against Chelsea. When
Yeah,
you're dropping points to West Ham, you crawl back into those cracks, don't you? We know
some
what
of
you
us do,
lot are
mate.
like.
Some of us do. Some of us do.
Everyone in the chat, please like, please subscribe. Go over and subscribe to Dan as well. Football's 12th Man podcast. He's got some great content going on there. Some good generic shows as well as Arsenal shows. And subscribe to myself. We are 31 away from 5K. Smash that subscribe button. Dan, let's start. Just quickly, let me start. Jonas, thank you very much. Has become a new channel member. If anyone else would like to become a channel member, please do. And once we get to a certain size, we'll do channel member only shows. Dan, let's start. I want to take this back. I want to rewind just under a year ago. And I want you to be honest with me. You've just missed out on Champions League football to Spurs by 2 points, I believe it was. We've got Conte. You've got Arteta. We got Champions League football. You haven't. What were you feeling at that point? Were you confident that this type of season that you're having and being top with 4 games to go was in the offing?
No, mate, not at all. Not in the slightest. I've not been a fan of Mikel Arteta, and I've not been a fan of a process under Stan Kroenke. I can't lie to you, mate. I felt that having the patience to do another youth project is something that we've already been patient for and already tried before. And I felt that although this is a youth project, this is also a youth project 3.0 because we've done it twice before already with the Jack Wilshires and Aaron Ramseys of this world, and previously before that with Fabregas and Van Persie. And we all know how that ended up. They ended up leaving, we ended up winning nothing, and we had no winning mentality or still installed around it. And what I could see with Mikel Arteta was that he was getting backed and that he was getting time. And sometimes people believe that's the right thing to do. And this season, it proves that we've shown unbelievable progress. Now, it turns out that after a great progress of a season, we still have nothing to show for it. So at the end of the season, unless the miracle happens and we win the league, we're not going to hold up a trophy that says we've shown the most progress this season. We're not going to hold up a trophy that says we are the youngest team with the youngest manager and we've come second. So I can, on one hand, believe brilliant season in terms of our progress, but it's not been a successful season because success, you need something to do that with at the end of the season, and we're not going to do that. But if you were saying to me last season where Arsenal would be, I really felt that Tottenham's short-term future would have been better than Arsenal's. And the reason I said that is because I thought they had an unbelievable manager. Now, it goes down to ownership. And I think with our ownership, we've kind of done a little bit of a 360. Your ownership have decided that they're more interested in becoming a tourist town and a tourist stadium. And they're more interested in putting go-kart tracks on the bottom of it and getting Beyonce and Jay-Z there. Whereas we, as a football club now, finally, that we have majority ownership, which is turned into total ownership, have decided that instead of cleaning the windows, we actually do want to refurbish our football club. And it seems now that we've done that in the coming windows. And I think the transfer windows have been key for Arsenal in trying to build what we have as a togetherness. And I think that off the pitch stuff that Mikel Arteta and Edu have done is something I've always praised them. They've got rid of the toxicity. They've looked at the players that didn't fit in and weren't being part of the football club moving forward. And they've tried to build something which is implement a young team which play together and have a connect with a fan base. And I think that has all been fantastic. Is it going to be enough to win us the major honours? I still haven't seen enough evidence of that. But I do think that we've shown unbelievable progress this season. Where it's gone wrong at Spurs and where it hasn't gone wrong at Arsenal in terms of that huge leap is basically because of this being, in my opinion, the wrong move for Tottenham long term. This was never a 18-month contract, a manager that wins now, not in 5 years, and
Yeah.
ownership who wants Tottenham to be successful in 5 years, not right now. And that just to me is just going to clash and go boom. And that's exactly what's happened. Whereas Arsenal have just done that little bit more. They keep going, they keep going. Doesn't matter that we come 8th, 5th. Now we've come second, blah, blah, blah. It looks to be second anyway. And they're happy to go with that as they see progress. We run completely differently in terms of our ownerships. And that is the only reason that Arsenal have done that leapfrog this season, because it's gone crash and kaboom at Tottenham, and at Arsenal it's just carried on going in that steadiness towards progress. And You know, I will say a lot of good things this season. I'll also say a lot of bad things. I think there's been a lot of bad with Mikel Arteta yet again in terms of his in-game management, and particularly in the last month. I do
Yeah.
think there's a lot of good with what he's done at the football club. And you can say that about the ownership and Edu as well, and in potentially not doing enough in transfer windows, etc. But in terms of comparing the two clubs, it's chalk and cheese for where we're going as to where Tottenham are. I Tottenham need to blow it up and start again, in my opinion.
Yeah, listen, I can't say it any better. We definitely do. We definitely do. I mean, it's an interesting point you made there about the hiring of Antonio Conte, because I, for one, as a Spurs fan, I've come into a lot of stick for saying that the guy should never have been there and not wanting him at the club and wanting him out. And my point always was, I know, lots of people won't listen to what you say. They just look at the headline. But what I always said, Dan, was if you've got a squad that's ready to win now, Conte's your guy, right?
100%.
You're bringing in Conte. So, for example, if Man City, if Man City didn't win the league this year, you bring in a Conte, you bring in an Ancelotti, and they go, all right, let's galvanise and go. But it never felt right for me at Spurs. Now, I want to mirror that to the kind of opposite end with Arteta. When he took over, I remember for the first couple of years, he's a guy, unlike Conte, who hasn't got any experience, came into your club, had a couple of years where it was, 8th and 5th or 8th and 8th or whatever it was, yeah. 8th and 8th. A lot of pressure from the Arsenal fans to go, why wasn't he sacked? And has that turned out to be a masterstroke from the owners?
So we don't know if it will be a masterstroke yet because we still haven't got anything to show for it. And I think people sometimes forget that. Arsenal fans that get very excited about, wow, look at us, we're such a great club. But we haven't won anything still since we won an FA Cup with Unai Emery's team. That's what people forget.
Yeah.
This is the first time, by the way, that Arteta has actually beaten Unai Emery's record. Before that, he hasn't managed to.
Right.
He's finally got in the top 4, which is something that Unai Emery and Wenger couldn't do in their time. So he's finally, after 4 attempts, managed to beat Unai Emery, who only had 1 attempt at doing it. The other thing that I will say is Antonio Conte was coming into Tottenham to win now with a squad that was not capable of winning now. That was the bottom end line of it. That was a squad that was not ready to win now. Mikel Arteta come into a squad that was not ready to win now, but our process, which is the word everyone uses, wasn't to win now. It was to build something for the future. Project, process, structure, all these names. It's all like PR spin, isn't it? All those words are being thrown at us. So all the fan base just went, we ain't going to win for a few years. Whereas Tottenham are like, we got Conte. It's this year. There's a trophy. It's an FA Cup. It's a League Cup. And you actually didn't have a squad good enough to win now. And your squad right now reminds me of when Mikel Arteta first taken over. Because when Mikel Arteta took over at Arsenal, we had Lacazette and Aubameyang and the rest was Tut, right? You've got Kane and Son and the rest is Tut. Now, some people might think that's harsh because you have got Romero and you have got Bentancur and you have got Kulusevski. And we had players as well and dotted around that were half decent. But none of them were looking at long term going, wow, what a player. Like, you can't believe this guy is unreal.
By the way, I don't think you're being harsh, Dan. If I'm honest, whenever people talk about Spurs, obviously the go-to is Kane and then Son, right? Kane and Son. Then everyone does what you just did. They go, Romero, Bentancur, Kulusevski. If I'm honest, 2 of those have been absolutely shocking this year. If I'm brutally honest, and someone said to me, and it's my opinion as well, that Spurs fans, we do this. We see a player like Kulu came in last year. Kulusevski came in, had a really good end to the season. And our fans already were touting him as, you know what? This guy could be the next Ballon d'Or winner. Do you know what I mean? It was like, this guy's going to be 150 million. This guy.
Well, a lot of people saying he's better than Saka. And I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute. Like, Saka's done it for 4 years now. Let's just calm down a bit. He's done it for 4 months, this guy. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's what I'm talking about, Dan. So the sample size last year was 4 months. The sample size this season, when we're coming up to a 10 months end of the season, Kulusevski's failed to. I mean, he's got 2 goals and 4 assists in the Premier League this season and hasn't looked good with it either. It's like, I'm not one of those who goes, oh, it's purely stats, but he doesn't look good. So for me, I think you could have stopped your sentence at Kane and Son, because even Romero looks absolutely diabolical.
I mean, the thing is with Romero, for me, this is my honest opinion on Romero. I actually do think there's a player there. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a bit of an old school defender. But if you don't have a calm head next to him, he is going to look rash. And that's why this season, Tottenham have looked rash with Romero because look at how bad some of these players are around him, mate. I mean, you've had 4 right backs. They all look absolute trash. You've got left backs that can't defend in Perisic and Sessegnon. You've got centre halves who, let's be fair, don't make one good one between them all. Davinson Sanchez, Eric Dyer, Tanganga,
God.
Christian Longley. All of them are absolutely shocking. And it's funny because the Spurs fans that aren't like yourself and Tobes and Fuad and Henry and some of the guys I do get on with genuinely and can call friends, to be honest. Some of the people on Twitter and social media, I've said for about 3 seasons now, I don't think Lloris is quite there anymore. I don't think Eric Dyer is good enough. Lay off him. He's a World Cup winner. Lay off Dyer. He's been our best centre-half. All right, keep him. Keep them both. I hope they both stay at Tottenham for 5 years. I'm a gooner. I don't care. It doesn't bother
People
me.
get very protective over their players.
Over those 2 players.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, because I've never been like that. When people say to me, Mustafi's crap, you got to get rid of him, I say, oh, you're telling me? I've been calling out for him for 4 years. I don't get there and go, shut up. He's a World Cup winner. He's him and Ozu have won a World Cup. I couldn't give a damn, right? You say it. You just say it how it is, and your eyes don't lie to you. Eric Dyer has been awful for Tottenham in the last 4 years. Lloris has been terrible and he's dusted. Both of these things have been true, but it seems you're not allowed to say that because you're hating on Tottenham, who are this wonderful club. Now, listen, Tottenham this season should have won a trophy, in my opinion, because they had the manager to do it, and they knew they weren't going to. They shouldn't have bothered sucking off this top 4 stuff, which is a load of bull, by the way, and it has been since Wenger started calling it a trophy. They should have gone, right, do you know what? Let's go out for this FA Cup. We've got Sheffield United. We've got an unbelievable chance of getting to the semi-final to a final of a FA Cup here. And he's gone and played kids against Sheffield United. Now, is that Conte? Is that Levy? Is that the owners? I've no idea, right? All of them probably. But that was a big, big error for me. A big, big error. You've gone out of the 2 domestic cups to Forest and Sheffield United.
Yeah,
that is poor, Savva. That's really poor.
Mate, listen, I agree.
You know what I mean?
And the worrying thing is, Dan, even when you look at that game at Sheffield United, we didn't actually drop too many players. You know, and we even brought Kane on for half an hour at the end. And it's almost as though, look, the quality of players isn't great at Spurs, but it's almost like the attitude is, we'll be all right. We'll get a new contract anyway. You know, no one's fighting to stay. No one's having to prove their worth. And I think what's going to show that more than anything, mate, is Eric Dyer is apparently about to be handed a 3-year contract extension.
Shocking.
Now, Eric Dyer joined Spurs. Someone in the chat will tell me if I'm wrong. And that's the beauty of being live. 2014, 15, that season, I believe. We're now 2023. And he's going to get another 3-year contract. And I do not understand how this keeps happening. And the thing for me, Dan, is it almost seems like now with Arteta and Edu, tell me if I'm wrong, that you've got 2 guys there and the owner that are on the same page. You know, they're
absolutely
working to the same thing. Whereas Spurs, I mean, this will now be our 3rd director of football in 2 years. I think our 4th or 5th manager in 2 years. It's just, how can you get a level of consistency and knowing what you want if you keep changing?
Facts. And you know what? It's mad because Chelsea and Spurs are the 2 laughingstock clubs right now, right? I think that's facts. Chelsea even more laughable than Spurs. It's absolutely embarrassing how poor they were last night at the Emirates. It was easiest game I think we've ever played in our lifetimes, let alone just this season at the Emirates. They were a shambles. And again, they've got nobody on the same wavelength above board level. They've got Nutty Todd, who just throws cash around. They've got absolutely nobody alongside him to know what they're doing, and he has clearly no experience. Now, one thing I will big up Arteta with is the stuff he's done on the pitch. I've never really been a fan of the stuff on it, if I'm honest with you. Arsenal would being 8th and 5th. That's never happened in my lifetime, and it shouldn't, in my opinion. But actually, where I'll give him credit is that he has got somehow the owners to do what he wants them to do. And he's got the owners to care about Arsenal Football Club again. Now, what I think they need, Tottenham right now, is somebody to care about the football club and somebody to care about the fans. Because at the moment, you've got a board and ownership that care about whether it's Beyonce or Anthony Joshua that's coming to their ground next, right? They don't care about the football club. It looks clear to me, right? So what you need is somebody to come in there and say, right, I care about this football club. Don't care about the go-kart track and who's playing in, you know, AJ or Fury coming in next. I care about who Tottenham have got next at this football club. I need to see X, Y, and Z. I need to see us all in one page, all in one direction. This is the boss. This is the management structure. And this is what we're doing in terms of our recruitment. And you go again. Because Spurs, it might be brutal to some fans. Spurs need to forget about Harry Kane and Son now. It's done. Like, that era's over. You need a new era now. And
I agree.
Right? You really do.
I agree.
And that is key for me moving forward, is where you go after Kane and Son. Now, you asked me a question about, is it right not to sack Mikel Arteta? Now, we've had ample opportunities to sack Mikel Arteta. We could have sacked him in his first year. We could have sacked him in his second year when he lost to Unai Emery's Villarreal. We could have sacked him when he bottled top four. And we could have sacked him this season if you're brutal enough and say, you're 8 points clear, mate, you've bottled it. Now, we're not going to do that because they back the guy. They believe he's the right guy, and the ownership and the board and him are all on the same page. Now, whether that's us being fools is yet to be seen. But you, as a football club, need to decide whether you want to get another Pochettino, who's kind of been there before and done it. Although it looks like he's going to Chelsea. Do you want to go and get another Conte Mourinho type? Or do you want to start completely again in what Arsenal have done and gone, do you know what? We're going to have a couple of years at least of hurt. But as Tottenham fans, without being horrible, we're kind of used to that. Let's take that.
I agree.
Go forward with it and see where we go. And go for a company, a Carrick. Xabi Alonso being mentioned today. Very, very impressed. And what I hear, very, very talented coach for what he's doing at Bayer Leverkusen. Do you go with that route and go, let's give him everything that he wants? He's definitely standing the job for 3 years. We're not going to sack him, even if we're 20th. We're not going to sack him. We're going to give it and go for it. Now, that's the route you might have to take, because for us, I was cursing, this ain't going to work. We're 15th. This is awful. Go and get Tuchel. He's sunning it up in the sun. Go and get Conte. And at the moment, 3 years down the line, I've been justified to be correct up until this point. Everybody's Dan talking facts. Dan's the only one saying it how it is. 3 years of absolute failure. Now, we've failed again in terms of a trophy, but actually it's looking like now, next season, it's a title. It's none of this, let's try and get in the top four. We're going for the title next year.
Well, do you think, from an Arsenal point of view, before we talk about Spurs, and lots of people shouting out and saying Dan is speaking pure facts. Yeah, listen, Dan is not one. He's not someone like Ty. Should we say we're talking about Arsenal? He does make me laugh, that guy, by the way. Please keep liking, please keep subscribing. We're now 30 away. Just 30 away from the big 5K. Come on, people. From an Arsenal point of view, then, you just said there that next season now is a title race, right? None of this, are we going to finish fourth? That puts huge pressure. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that puts huge pressure on Arteta, right, to prove that this wasn't we had a good year, because of what people are saying is, well, they've had a good year because, Man U were rebuilding, Chelsea fell off a cliff, Liverpool have had a mare. They'll all be back next year. Newcastle spending money. So the pressure on Arteta to go again next year and be in a title race is arguably, that's going to be the most pressured season of all the 5 seasons he would have had as manager, right?
Facts. It's a massive summer, and names like Declan Rice and Moses Caicedo and Mason Mount and Rasmus Højlund are all being tipped to come to Arsenal. We're in a position now where Champions League football, we're near the top of the table, and everyone's now going to say, a few more signings and Arsenal there. It's more than a few more, by the way. We are about 6 signings away if we want to go and compete up with the likes of Manchester City. But I must say, the pressure next season, if he doesn't win nothing, needs to be on this guy, because you've had 5 seasons now and you have not won anything since then. You've not even got a tin pot to
But is that the difficult thing for him, Dan? Because obviously everyone's going to want him in the league, but let's face it, Man City are still going to be formidable, and Haaland's going to probably get 100 goals next year or whatever. So are you saying then that you need to build a squad to the point where you can challenge for the league, but also put some eggs in the FA Cup basket whatever
next season? It's none of this. We're going for a title. Get out all the cups.
Right. Okay.
Load of absolute crap. That was crap anyway, by the way. I hated it. In fact, we went out to Brighton in the League Cup. We rolled over yet again in the FA Cup 4 years running after winning the thing. The only thing that's kept this manager in the job, by the way, is he's winning that competition. And every single season after that, he's disrespected it. And then you've got the Europa League, which was a shambles as far as I'm concerned. You can't go out to... We've gone out in the last 3 years where we have been in the competition. One of the years we weren't even in Europe, right? The other 3 years this manager's been in Europe, we've lost to Olympiacos, Villarreal and Sporting Lisbon. Now, we're about to go in the Champions League. What does that do for our confidence going into a Champions League where those clubs can't even qualify for the competitions, the ones that are knocking us out? So that's a worry. So next season, huge pressure on that as well. For me, if you get to a stage next season, Savva, where it's end of season, we're going 1 year from now, and it looks like we're going to miss out on the title. Man City are too good. Haaland's banging him in again, and Pep Guardiola's been too good. But we have a domestic cup to show for it, or we've got to the Champions League final and we win that, or whatever it be. Of course, you can't sit there and go, get the hell out, Mikel. But if
he finishes third, If he finishes third next year and a League Cup, how are you Arsenal fans feeling then?
If it's not a title challenge, then I would say that it's not successful because you can be third, can't you, and be 3 points off of first, sort of thing.
Sure.
But
sure.
For me, second and third doesn't really matter, if I'm honest with
Okay.
you, because you ain't won it, right? He's in the top four. Way, woo, pop the champagne, top four. But for me, you've not got the first, right? Now, if you're
Yeah.
third and you're 10 points off second and 15 off first, we've got problems, right? But for me, what have you got to show for it? Because this, I can't sit there and argue with fans that say Manchester United could have a much more successful season than Arsenal, and Arsenal fans cry about that. But I don't think there's that. I don't think there's anything there that's factually incorrect, because we've both qualified for the Champions League by the league. Neither of us have won the league, and one of us can do that at the end of the season, and the other one can't. So
Right.
why is it
Yeah.
that's such a bad thing to say that Manchester United have had a more successful? Do I think they've had a better season than Arsenal? Not really. They've been shocking to watch.
It's
They've
all
lost
about the
7-0,
words you
but
use.
successfully they can do that. Arsenal can't. So it is about words, man.
It's massive about words, and I won't open this up to the floor. Actually, the moment I say what I'm about to say, people are going to start talking about it anyway. As I said, Henry and I had this debate a couple of weeks ago at work, and I brought it onto a YouTube show, and oh my God, got pelters for it. And the debate was, who's had a better career, right? Jamie Vardy or Harry Kane? Now, everyone was going mad, going, it's Kane, Kane's the better player. And I was like, well, I didn't ask who the better player was. I asked who'd had the better career. Now,
Yeah.
that's for me is very similar to the debate you're talking about there with
facts, mate. Absolute facts.
If Man United win let's say Man United do the domestic double and finish fourth versus Arsenal, who had a title race but finished second. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think any Man United fan's gonna go, oh, I'll bite Arsenal's hand off to have their year over ours.
Absolutely. It's about history. It's about trophies. And you're right about the Kane Vardy debate. I saw someone put something on DR, I think it was, or someone else. And I saw it and I thought...
They copied me.
Well, there you go. They copied you. I thought to myself, well, Harry Kane's a better player. I mean, that's an easy debate to win. But if you ask me now, do you want Harry Kane's individual records of golden boots and, being top scorers at competitions, or do you want Jamie Vardy's FA Cup medal and trophy and Premier League title a medal and trophy? I'm sorry, Harry Kane. I'm sure it's lovely winning a golden boot, but I'd much rather win an FA Cup and a Premier League title. So I think you have to look at it and you say this. Do you know what? Ian's right here, by the way. Can I mention this in a minute afterwards? This phase 3 thing.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it, man. All floor's yours.
This is where Arsenal let himself down massively. Arsenal journalists, Arsenal fan bases. I never heard about. Do you know what I mean by this phase 3, or are you confused? Right, you do.
I've seen it.
So we are 8 points clear. Let's take ourselves back. Not long ago, by the way, we were 8 points clear, and no one was mentioning phases. Nobody was mentioning phase 3, phase 2. We're only in phase 3. We're phase 5 and all this crap. The minute we lose to City, we're in phase 3. We've got another 2 phases to go yet. It's like all the time is an excuse of Arsenal fans. It's told, let's do this. This is where we let ourselves down. There's a lot of good gooners out there, and a lot of good bad gooners out there, and like there is in every fan base. And I know it sounds harsh saying bad gooners, but deluded gooners, I should call them, right? I do not understand why it matters what phase you're in when you're 8 points clear. When you're 8 points clear, you should win the title. I know Man City are great, by the way, but Man City haven't had to be outstanding to get ahead of Arsenal. Arsenal have threw it away. Now, that doesn't then mean we go, there's only top 4 we're going for anyway. It's only phase 3. We've got another 2 phases. How long is this phase, by the way? How long is this process? When does the process end? I'd love to know. Is phase 3...
Phase 3 of what? What, 95 phrases?
I don't know. I've no idea, mate. I've no idea. It frustrates the hell out of me, man. Charles Watts has come out the other day saying Mikel Arteta has said we're only in phase 3 of a 5-phase project. So what happens in phase 4 and phase 5 then? Because we're in a title race already. So what happens in phase 4? What it will be is phase 4 is we recruit in the summer. Phase 5 is we win a Champions League or a Premier League.
Right.
But it won't be that, because what they'll do is they'll drag it on more. So phase 4 will be try and clear out some more dead wood. try and get more of the summer recruitment completed, and try and build up for phase 5, which will probably be another 2 or 3 years. Phase 5. Do you know what I mean? Like, when is phase 5? When is this process has ended? By the way, as far as I'm concerned, as a Gooner, we're in a title race. We're ready to win the title next season with the right recruitment. Process done. Don't worry about this crap young squad. We're a young squad. Haaland's 22, by the way, and he scored 38 goals. So let's not worry about how young we are. Let's worry about how good we are. Do you know what I mean? This is what I can't stand, man. I hate this rubbish.
I think we can beat you. I mean, as Ben, big up Ben, has turned around and said Tottenham are in phase 750,000. Yeah, absolutely, Ben. Just quickly, I've got a super chat. Thank you to everyone in the comments. Minerals is saying Savva, we were 8 points clear. Yeah, I didn't say anything. Wasn't me talking about it. You lost it. Here we go. Let's have a look. Sorry, I should have brought this up. Here we go. Massive super chat. Thank you so much. Trinidadian Deep just coming in with a super sticker. Thank you so much. That is much appreciated. For anyone that doesn't know, and I'm sure you do know Trinidadian Deep, if anyone does want to put in super chats, 50% of that revenue does go to the British Heart Foundation. So I can't say fairer than that. Please keep smashing the like. Even if you don't want to do a super chat, subscribe. It's free. And we're edging closer. We're edging that bit closer. Let me ask you then, Dan, from a Premier League perspective, I mean, this year, obviously, it's been Man City, Arsenal in a two-horse race, right? I mean, there were talks of Man United at one point that were going to try and stretch their legs, and probably a bit too much to do. Next year, for me, though, is going to be epic, because Man City will be Man City. Arsenal, by all accounts, should strengthen, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and be right up there. Newcastle United are going to get top 4 and are going to strengthen. Liverpool, I think Liverpool will get back up there. I can't see them having another season as bad. Chelsea, we don't know. That's a lot. And Man United as well. You know, there's a lot of teams up there. What's your feelings on next season? I know we haven't finished this season yet. What's your feelings on next season? Because there's going to be 3 or 4 managers in that pack that are all going to be told that they bottled it, that they flopped, that they've been unsuccessful. But only one person can win it. And lots of people are talking about winning it already.
Yeah, next season is going to be interesting for a number of reasons, because the summer recruitment's always huge. Takeover of clubs is always huge. Rumours and takeovers. And managers are always huge. And there's a lot of those topics that are up in the air at the moment, Savva. And who is going to buy, who's going to go big? We all know Manchester City are going to be up there. Who are Arsenal going to get in to improve? Newcastle are going to spend big and improve. Liverpool, they need 3 or 4 players to get themselves back up there. Manchester United could get taken over and go absolutely mental in the summer.
Yeah.
Chelsea are going to have Pochettino. They're going to spend mega money in the summer again because Todd's a mentalist. What's happening at Tottenham? Can Tottenham get himself back into a top 4 race with a new manager and back in? There's all this we don't know yet. And for me, in terms of the title next season, if I'm looking at it now, I do think that it's Arsenal, Manchester City, but that could change quite dramatically if Liverpool went and sorted a defender and a midfielder out in the ilk of a Kante and Van Dijk of old, and then all of a sudden they're back. So it's very similar to what they did with Alisson and Van Dijk when they signed, and everyone went, boom, wow, they're here. Chelsea, can they get themselves back into it? Manchester United, how far can Newcastle go? These are all questions I can't answer yet. But I do really like what I'm seeing from Newcastle at the moment. I do really, really like what I'm seeing.
I'm worried about them. I mean, not from a Tottenham perspective, but in terms of them winning things. You look at, they've got a well-oiled machine already. I said on a show last night, I felt like he started with a back 4, made them the best defence in the league. Now what we've seen slowly but surely over the last 3 months is they're punishing teams now. They're scoring 3s, 4s, 5s, 6. They're scoring goals for fun. Let's talk about them adding players like Dybala, Maddison. Do you know what I mean? Even I saw reports today suggesting they might go in for Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? If they're looking at players like that, could they mount a title challenge next year, or is that just a bit too soon?
I think it's a bit too soon, but it does depend on recruitment. I'm a huge fan of Eddie Howe, by the way. I think what he's done is incredible. And it's really interesting to see what he did when he left Bournemouth and he come out of management for a while. He went and learned off of the best. You know, we're talking about having sessions with Pep Guardiola, having sessions with Diego Simeone, going and speaking to Jurgen Klopp. And now what I see in Newcastle is a balance of attacking football with great defensive mindset, which is what Diego Simeone is all about. I see the press of a Pep Guardiola side that he's learned from him. And I also see the intensity of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool side at its best. And I think Eddie Howe, as within performances throughout this season, I can think of bit parts in all of those managers in him. And this Newcastle side is intense. It does press. It does have a well balance. And you've just mentioned their back line and how good it is. I think they've got pretty much everything with a side that when you look on 1 to 11, you don't go, wow. You go, there's a couple of good players in there. So they've got a good spine.
It's oiled, isn't it, though? Like they've
very well drilled.
It feels like the players they've gone and bought. Look, I think when the owners came in, I think everyone thought it was going to be like a Man City moment. I'm sure you remember this, when Man City, I think like their first signing was like Robinho. Do you remember?
That's
and it was like, everyone was like, oh my God, look at this.
That's right.
You know, Newcastle didn't do that. Newcastle went and got Pope. So actually, before Pope, Newcastle went and got Trippier for a relegation battle. Dan Burn
Willock
for a do you know what I mean? Willock. They, and what they've done, I think, is brilliant. And if they do decide to stretch their legs, if they do decide to get that wallet out, I say worried. I think that's the complete wrong word. I'm not worried. I don't support them, but I'm worried that they could go forward and really do something in the next couple of years.
Newcastle, I mean, it is hello Newcastle. It was hello Manchester City. It was hello Chelsea before that. And now it's hello Newcastle. They are going to win the league. They are going to win the Champions League because that's what happens when you get that amount of money. What is really interesting to me is that Newcastle have not gone, we need those 12 players and we need those 12 players and we need those 12 players. They've gone about it really smart. I love the signing of Bruno Guimaraes. I wanted him in January when they got him.
Class.
I love the signing even more of Alexander Isak, and I really liked him. When we signed Ødegaard, he scored, I think it was 17 goals that year, Isak, and I think 14 assists were from Ødegaard. It was incredible, them two together at Real Sociedad. And I thought, he's a player. I watched him at Sweden, thought, wow. And I've watched him in the Premier League, and I love what I see. I think they've done really well. Eddie Howe, for me, what he has done with Almiron, what he has done with Willock, and what he's done with Joe Linton. I mean, this was a player who couldn't score for toffee in front of goal. And he's like, do you know what? I'm going to push you back because you're not a striker. You're a number 8. And now he's absolutely killing it. And he's one of the first names in the team sheet. I think the signing of
Fabian Schär as well.
Well, and Sven Botman, what a signing that is. Botman's been fantastic, So superb. You're right. Trippier and Burn were superb, but so was Botman. Pope, 10 million. It's got to be one of the bargains of the season for me. And then obviously Schär has really improved. The centre-half always rated, by the way. So if they can then add the likes of Maddison, the likes of Moussa Diaby, the likes of Yuri Tielemans, and look to strengthen what their first 11 is now with 4 or 5 really good signings that can come in and get first team football to allow for competition. Why can't they go all the way in competitions next season? I'm not so sure they're ready for a title because Man City are ridiculous and we're a lot more gelled than they are. But I don't think I put it past Newcastle surprising yet again, because this season I had them down as top 6. Right, I think I had them down as 6th or just missing out at 7th. They've gone and smashed top 4. So for me, it's really impressive. It really is.
Absolutely. Let me just get through a few super chats. By the way, when you do put super chats into the shows, YouTubers, don't ignore them. By the way, we star them so that we can go back and read them out. So please don't ever worry. Let me just go through a couple here. First of all, I've got Phil P, the leader of the Phil Army. There's like 1,000 Phils who support Tottenham, maybe exaggerating. And Phil P, I think, is like the self-appointed Phil Army. He said, is this a football process or the MCU? Phil, as always, bringing his wonderful humour and beauty to the show. Craig Lee has a question for you, and then so does NS Sports. So Craig Lee, big up Newcastle fan, has said, question for Dan, quite simply, Jesus or Isak?
That's a great question. 2 very different players, in my opinion, because I think that Jesus does a lot more in bringing players in around him. and for me has unbelievable press. I think Isak is an absolute killer, and it's mad because the attributes are actually very, very similar to a Thierry Henry-esque type striker. And I'm not saying he's going to hit those levels, but by any
Yeah.
means. But I do think that he's got the pace, he's got the power, he's direct, and boy, can he finish. So if you was to ask me, I would go with Isak because I think he brings goals to his game. I think Jesus is very much someone who can bring in players around him, and I'm always all about goals for my number 9. So I would go with Isak, although I think Jesus is class.
Yeah, absolutely. And a question here from NS Sports TV. Looks like a Chelsea fan. So, a question for Dan: what would hurt more, bottling a North London derby in a Europa League final, or bottling a UEFA Champions League final to Chelsea? God,
Cool.
that's a
That's
question.
that's a horrible one, isn't it? I mean, neither. That's horrendous. Both of them, because they're my 2 worst clubs, apart from Man United, who I hate probably more than both of them at times. Okay, I would have to go with bottling. I'd have to prefer to bottle it to you boys in the Europa League because I can't lose a Champions League final again because I'm still hurting from 2006, and I'm not really hurting from Baku as much. So I'll go with that because the Europa League to me it's all right, but it's not the one you want, is it? Do you know
It's
what I
the
mean?
one I want.
Well, yeah, you want
I
anything,
want
anything, I
I
suppose.
want anything at the moment. Thank you. Look, we're going to go for about another 7 or 8 minutes. We're going to do 45 minutes every week to make it short, snappy, and so that people don't get bored with the same information. But there's 187 of you in here. Smash the like button. Only 64 of you have, which means over 100 of you haven't. Super chats, as we said, 50% does go to charity. And thank you for the 4 people who just subscribed. We are now 27 away from the 5K. So keep smashing that button. Wayne Holland and Minerals have asked some questions. Let me get those in for you. Minerals FC. If you don't know Minerals, he is a funny chap. I said, Savva, mate, question for Dan. Do you think Kivior has got the minerals? Has he got the minerals, that Kivior bloke?
Well, if you listen to the top gooners, then yeah, he's going to be the next Cannavaro, mate. He had a great performance last night. That's enough. Not enough to convince me yet. I mean, he had a good game last night, but let's be fair, Chelsea got the worst attack in the league, and you can't really compare what he's done last night. He's pacey, I'll give you that. He's absolutely quick. He's mustard when it comes to he's rapid, but I don't know that I've seen enough yet. I've seen him play 3 games in an Arsenal shirt. One of them he was thrown on at Anfield and then he got sent off straight away. The other one he gave away a goal at Sporting Lisbon. And in last night's performance, he was hardly tested by Aubameyang, who had 9 touches, and Havertz, who come on and has been one of the biggest flops of the last couple of years. So I don't think we have seen enough yet, is my answer to that one, to know if he's got the minerals. He's highly rated. Lewandowski's talked very highly of him and says he was very surprised at how good he was when he was in the Poland international side. And he's come at Arsenal and broken records at London Colney for some of the attributes that would make him be a physical presence at the back and have some pace. But other than that, mate, I haven't seen enough.
Yeah. I guess we'll know more next season on that one. Just quickly, as Ben has said, there is the link to Dan's channel. So please, thanks Ben for doing that. Please go over and subscribe. Subscribe to as many YouTube channels as you can, so you can get as much content as possible. A couple of questions that we've got here. Daniel Sina has said, "Do you guys think Villa will go under the radar next season?" Now, Dan, for me, I think this is a difficult one for Unai Emery, because I think he's completely outperformed what was expected from him being brought in this season. He's had half a season in charge, or I think he's just over half a season in terms of Premier League games in charge of Aston Villa. And I don't think anyone in the wildest dreams thought that they would be in a race for Europa League football. It's doing it again next year that's the big thing for Emery, right? Because doing it now, plaudits. The moment you're 10th, 11th, 12th next year, it's, oh, he's flopped, get out of the club. So it's a huge issue he's created for himself by being successful, right?
I think he is and has always been a very good manager. When he was at Arsenal, things weren't the same behind the scenes. There was a different board. There was a really toxic fan base. He'd been left in a mess with Arsene Wenger when he'd gone, with players on ridiculous wages, which is what Arteta and Edu have had to spend 4 years trying to clear out, and some of them are still here. When I get to the stage of what I think of Unai Emery as a manager, I've always rated him. I think he did great at PSG. He won 4 Europa Leagues now with Seville, and then another one with Villarreal. Got to a final with us. I think he's done unbelievably well at Aston Villa. I don't think people give him enough credit, because what they say is that the squad was always better than 16th. Yeah, but Gerrard couldn't get that squad winning games, and he walked in and he's taken them into a Champions League um, position. Now they're not going to stay there, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to get Champions League. I think the top four is done. But next season, with the right recruitment, which Aston Villa have always done in terms of spending money and backing managers, whether they thought they were going to, whether it was Dean Smith, whether it's Steven Gerrard, or whether it's now Unai Emery, they've always backed him. I think Unai Emery could have a very good time at Aston Villa, and it would not surprise me if he is flirting with European football next season again. Now, the top four, in my opinion, is already done. And next season, I think he'll struggle to be dropping out of that top four. But I do think Liverpool will be up there in fifth. And then it's a matter of whereabouts the likes of Spurs, Brighton, Villa, Chelsea, and some of the others are going to be. And I think Villa will be right up there with that, because I think Unai Emery is a very, very good manager.
Couple more questions for you, Dan, to finish the show off on. So now you've got to bounce in 2 minutes, so keep the answer short for your own time, not for mine. Wayne Holland, big up Wayne, Leicester City fan, huge Leicester City fan, massive point for your club the other night. Gutted that you didn't get 3, I'm sure you are. So question for Dan, do you think the season changed when Xhaka and Trent had their set 2? Seems to have gone wrong since then.
Interesting this, and big up Wayne. I do feel personally like that particular moment allowed for the crowd to get up. I don't understand what Xhaka's doing there. I think it's an absolute nonsense for me. Everyone knows for thoughts on Granit Xhaka, but this season he's been immense. But he's lost his head there for no reason. We're 2-0 up. Laugh at Trent. Ha, you're 2-0, mate. See ya. But he can't. He has to get himself walking in. He has to get himself involved. And since that football game turned from 2-0 to 2-2, things have gone downhill for Arsenal. So I don't think that you can say it's his fault that we're now where we are, but that has definitely contributed to Arsenal's downfall in the following 4 games for me, because that was a stupid decision. We're 2-0 up. We're absolutely cruising. There's just no need for it. So that's what I think of that.
Absolutely. And quickly, we've got 60 seconds left for you, Dan. By the way, sorry, Ben, absolutely. Ben, enjoy the pub. And yes, purple and gold until Tottenham are sold. Get it trending. A question from Trinidadian Deep, and thank you again for the super chat earlier. I said, question for Dan. If you had Conte, I'm sure Gunners would have had would the Gunners have had a domestic cup already? If you had Conte this year?
Yeah, I think we would have won the league. It's mad, isn't it?
Do you reckon?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. I understand Conte was boring at Spurs. It was awful at Spurs, but I've told the reasons why it didn't work at Spurs. It doesn't mean it's never going to work for him at another club. He's a win-now manager, and we proved that we had a win-now team. We're 8 points clear. What it also proved is that with some poor in-game management and some bad team selections, you can get it completely wrong. And I think that is what's happened with Mikel Arteta. I'm not going to sit there and slate him and say that he needs to get sacked and all this like I've heard, but I do think that Conte wins and knows how to win. Diego Simeone is another one of those. Jose Mourinho is another one of those. They've all proven with their CV that they can win right now. If you want them to have a project in 5 years, don't get them. Don't hire them. They'll be crap. But if you want them to win something right now, whether it be a cup or a Premier League title, they're the guys to do it. And I actually agree with that last comment. I think Conte would have won us the league this season, which is mad, isn't it? To think that in this position, maybe not, the process and all the rest of it. If you said to him with 5 games to go, or whatever it is, 6 games to go, win us the league, I think Conte, Ancelotti, Mourinho, Simeone, they're the guys that you need to go and do it and get you over the line. And Arteta, unfortunately, hasn't shown that he can do that yet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Baz, apologies, mate. I've tried to read out as many as I can. There's only so much I can do. So apologies. Listen, Dan, thanks so much. Really glad we're doing this show. Dan and I'll be back next week for a quick 45-minute, half an hour. We'll talk about Spurs and Arsenal, and then we'll talk about any questions that people in the chat have got. Dan, where can people find you? What sort of numbers you're looking at for subscribers at the moment?
Thanks, mate. Well, listen, first of all, make sure you hit a like and subscribe on this one. That's the first thing you got to do. Make sure that Savva hits 5K overnight. And if you can come and follow myself, then it's Dan Arsenal at 87 on all socials. And it's Football's 12th Man podcast, which is just hitting towards 8.5K. So if you can hit us on my next target, which is 10K, that would be amazing. We've got a show tonight at 10 p.m. We've got a show tomorrow at 10 p.m. which is all football fans talking all things football. So make sure you come and join us over there. Thanks, Savva.
No worries. Listen, The link is in the title, so please go over and follow. Please like, please subscribe to me before you leave. Thank you to everyone for the super chats. It is much appreciated. And I will be live with Henry Wright and Sean Butler at 6:00 on Henry Wright's channel. So jump over there. We'll be talking about Xavi Alonso being linked to Tottenham Hotspur, the 800 manager in the last 3 weeks to be linked with our club. Dan, thanks a lot. I'll see you next week. Take care.
Nice
and
one.
We are